Showtime, a story on public speaking, presentation skills, inspiration, and mastery. Written by Armani Talks. Narrated by Daniel Cryer. Chapter 1. Malakai walked center stage. The audience looked back in disbelief. Really? Ladies and gentlemen, Malakai is taking stage. Unbelievable, the commentator said. Malakai slowly walked on stage. His white suit was spattered in blood. There was a pocket square wrapped around his battered left knuckle. Just a few moments earlier, Malakai had viciously punched through the mirror in his waiting room. He destroyed his entire waiting room, flipped tables, broken glasses, shattered lamps. The biggest speech of his life was here, and he was set to deliver it right after hearing the most horrific news of his life. The audience couldn't believe what they were witnessing. Malakai's family and his village couldn't believe what they were witnessing. The thousands of journalists in the audience could not believe what they were witnessing. His twin brother, Gordon, who sat in the front row, could believe what he was witnessing. Malakai continued to walk center stage. He looked at the faces in the crowd. He looked at the cameras. The audience waited in suspense. Is he really going to speak? Chapter 2. 6 months ago. 30 fucking minutes? What is this? Malakai was waiting in the drive-thru for so long, waiting to pick up a quick meal. He already had a long day, and the thought of making food at home made him nauseous. He just wanted to pick up food from Taco Bell, go home, watch some TV, and knock out. But his plans were getting stunted with how long it was taking in the drive-thru. Malakai was becoming infuriated. He used to work in Taco Bell for his first job. The Taco Bell in the food court, to be exact. Since this was his first job, he had a hunger to prove himself to the manager. The manager was a man in his mid-40s whose entire life revolved around Taco Bell. The manager's name was Miguel. Malakai went to Miguel's Taco Bell 3 times before he finally got hired. Whenever someone would give Malakai a chance to prove himself, it touched his heart. His narrative mind would get engaged, and he didn't want to let them down. So Malakai worked hard. He worked overtime. He made it an effort to ensure that Miguel was proud of him. The customers loved it when they saw Malakai on the cash register because they knew they were going to get exquisite service. He always went the extra mile to make sure that Miguel's establishment looked good compared to the other establishments in the food court. The food court in the mall also had other Chinese restaurants, sub places, pizza places, etc. Therefore, Malakai needed to make sure that his Taco Bell had the competitive advantage of being quick and efficient. Quick and efficient. How fast food should be. Why was he waiting 30 minutes to get his food for? I thought it was called fast food, he thought in disgust. He couldn't even leave because the drive-thru had a one-way lane and there was already a pile of cars behind him. As he waited, he turned off the radio. The radio music began disgruntling him, a bunch of mainstream hits with little to no depth. Malakai turned the music off so he could meditate. As of late, he'd been meditating. He'd learned that meditation calms the mind down and increases gray matter in the brain. He wasn't too sure what gray matter was, but if it was enough to calm him down, then he was sold. Ever since Malakai was a child, he struggled with anger issues, the type of anger issues that would make others look at him in a different way. At first, Malakai wasn't aware of his anger issues. He thought it was something that everyone had, especially youngsters. As he got older, he realized his temper was not ordinary. It was showing signs of something deeper. He once heard a poet say, "If you get angry about the small things, that means you're running away from the big things." What big thing was Malakai running away from? Did this moment of him waiting 30 minutes in the fast food restaurant warrant anger? He believed so. For most of Malakai's temper tantrums, he believed he was justified. He felt he was being disrespected, and the only logical thing to do was show that he wasn't a punk. It made him feel better when he learned that many highly creative people also struggled with rage too. Michael Jordan would get heated at his teammates. Steve Jobs would ferociously yell at his team. Even good old Walt Disney was known to have a heated temper when others challenged his authority. Malakai believed that his rage was of the same lens. He must have gotten angry because he believed in efficiency. He had dozens of shoes with massive holes in the soles. Why? It's because he walked with ferocity. He walked like he had somewhere to go. Others would often look like they were dragging their feet next to him. He couldn't stand it when others walked slow near him. Initially, he thought his anger was justified, until he realized it wasn't. Malakai and his father got superheated in the phone call recently. That phone call was enough to show Malakai that his temper may be somewhat justified, but not justified enough. If meditation could help with his anger, then he would give meditation a chance. He waited in the drive-thru. 35 minutes turned into 45 minutes, and his orders still hadn't been taken. Malakai steadily began counting his breaths. 1, 2, 3, 4. Chapter 3. After 50 minutes, Malakai hears the voice box in the Taco Bell say, "Yeah, go ahead." Yeah, go ahead? Is that how you greet a customer? You don't even say, "Sorry for keeping you waiting for almost an hour due to our incompetence"? Anyways, Malakai wasn't going to make a big deal. He was almost out. "Yes, may I get the combo box, and can you exchange the cinnamon twists for the nacho chips as well?" Malakai asked. "No," said the voice. "What?" "I can't exchange the cinnamon twists for the nacho chips." "I come here all the time, and I always switch the cinnamon twists for the nachos," Malakai said. "Well, I can't do it," said the cashier in a condescending tone. "I've been waiting for over 40 minutes. I do this all the time. Please exchange the cinnamon twists for the nacho chips." Since Malakai had counted his breaths up to 47 at that point, he felt somewhat calm. He didn't feel the need to lash out. Yet. "I can't do it," the cashier responded. "I waited for a long time, and there is no other order that I want. Please exchange the cinnamon twists for the nacho chips." Silence. Malakai waited. He assumed the cashier was talking to his manager to see how to make the exchange happen. He waited for 5 minutes. Dead silence. "Hello?" Malakai said. "Yes," responded the cashier. "Update?" "I already told you. I can't exchange the cinnamon twists." Malakai became infuriated. This guy was just standing idle for 5 minutes, not saying anything? Is this dumbass cashier really showing an attitude after wasting almost an hour of Malakai's time? Malakai began yelling, "Yo, fucker, I come here all the time. I told you to fucking exchange my shit. I'm not going anywhere till you give me what I fucking asked for. Give me your manager's number. Give me your district's number, you useless piece of shit." "Your mama," said the cashier through the voice box. "My mama?" thought Malakai in rage. Did this worker just talk back to a customer? From Malakai's worldview, a worker never talked back to a customer. Miguel's Taco Bell philosophy had been imprinted in Malakai's mind. He knew that in the restaurant business, the customer was meant to be seen as a deity. And this worker talked back to Malakai and insulted his mom too? This enraged Malakai. "Wait till I see you at the front. Just wait." Chapter 4. Axel and Gordon were surprised that Malakai still wasn't home. This was unusual. Malakai was more disciplined than not showing up till 11. His two brothers were up to date with Malakai's movements. Axel was the oldest. Gordon was Malakai's twin. "Hey, Malakai hit you up or anything?" Axel asked Gordon. "Nah, he didn't hit me up yet. He's normally back by this time." "You think he's good?" Gordon asked. Axel shrugged his shoulders. Normally, he didn't get worked up, but today he was a tad bit worried. As the oldest brother, Axel was overprotective with his two hot-headed brothers. He felt like he was responsible for taking care of them, especially with their parents away. As of late, Axel had been getting these feelings. These feelings were noticeable in his ears, left thigh, and gut. He realized that gut feelings didn't just occur in the gut. Instead, it was sudden sensations that went all over the body. Tonight, Axel kept feeling those sensations. "Hey, Axel," Gordon said. "Yeah?" "Look at this." Gordon handed Axel his phone with a text message. The message was from Malakai. It wrote, "Help. 3211 Lincoln Road." Chapter 5. Malakai pulled out his phone. After 1 hour and 12 minutes, he was finally entering the drive-thru window. Someone was going to pay for the wait. More importantly, he wanted to see the person who talked reckless to him. He wanted to make this coward go viral for talking to him reckless. The meditation was a memory of the distant past at this point. His anger was uncontrollable. Not only was his time wasted, but he was disrespected. Disrespect was something that Malakai could not tolerate. He didn't believe in taking the high road. He believed others should understand that Malakai was not the guy to disrespect. Whether that was going to be learned through words or through violence was not always clear. He pulls up to the drive-thru. The guy opens the window and says, "2 cheesy Chipotle burritos? That'll be $4.84, sir." Malakai listened to the voice. Nah, that's not the voice who he heard earlier. "Who was in the cash register before you?" Sir? "Who was in the cash register before you?" Malakai repeated in the same tone. "Why, sir, is there anything I can help you with?" "There was a guy who talked to me disrespectfully on the mic. I can tell from your tone that it wasn't you. Who was in the cash register before you?" The guy looked noticeably disturbed at this point. He was a white kid, but his face was now becoming red. Malakai could tell that he was protecting the disrespectful worker. "Have the guy who was talking to me meet me here. I'm not going anywhere until I see his face." The cashier had the face of someone who was stuck in a pickle. Based on his body language, Malakai could tell this was a new employee who didn't want any trouble. Malakai had trained enough new employees back in his Taco Bell days to see the uncomfortable looks of being new on the job. "I'm waiting," Malakai said with his voice raising. Suddenly, a flush of anger burst within him which made him yell, "Where's that pussy? You back there, pussy, let me see what you look like. That's why you work for me, bitch, know that." A few other workers from the drive-thru began staring at him in confusion. Malakai could see a few heads popping out from the cars behind him to see what was going on. "Where are you, coward?" Malakai roared. Suddenly, he could hear aggressive footsteps. A 6'2" guy, tan skin, and a Taco Bell uniform comes walking towards him. "What, bitch? You looking for me? Fuck your nacho chips and fuck you. Get the hell out of my drive-thru." Malakai looked at this guy and saw floor supervisor on his tag. This guy is a supervisor talking to his customers like this? "What's your name, bitch?" Malakai yelled at the worker. "Can't you read?" The supervisor responded back, pointing to his tag. It wrote, "Cooper." "Yo, Cooper, congratulations. You're fired from this job." Malakai had been recording the whole thing and was ecstatic to get just a strong response out of him. His happiness got balanced by the anger he felt for being talked to disrespectfully by this worker. He responded with, "You better know this. You work for me. I'm the customer, you're a worker. You should be lucky I pay your paycheck." "You don't pay me anything. You're banned from this Taco Bell," barked the disgruntled employee. "Ha ha, try to ban me. Don't make me walk inside and whoop your ass." "Try it. I'm not scared of you and your dusty-ass Honda Civic," said the employee with a smirk on his face. "What do you drive, bitch? What's that Taco Bell money getting you? Look at you, a straight loser. In your 30s and still working in fast food, your parents must be proud of you," Malakai said. At this point, the anger was spilling through Malakai's voice. That's when the man aggressively took his head out of the drive-thru window, got close to Malakai and said, "Fuck you and your mama." Without thinking twice, Malakai slapped the cashier right on the face. It was a loud enough slap to be heard by the other workers in the Taco Bell and the other drivers in the drive-thru. The slap landed perfectly. "Watch your mouth, boy," Malakai said in rage. That's when Cooper stuck his head back inside, grabbed a filled drink, and threw it at Malakai. The lid came off the drink as it hit Malakai's car, and the Sprite spilled all over the front seats. Enraged, Malakai opens the door to fight the cashier, but the cashier suddenly closes the window right as Malakai was about to lunge at him. He sees the cashier on the phone, most likely with the cops. Seething with anger, Malakai realizes he better leave before the cops arrest him for assault. Since the car right behind him is so close, they can't see his license plate. Quickly, Malakai rushes to the back of his car, squeezes himself between the other car, and begins loosening the screws of his license plate. Quickly, Malakai rushes to the back of his car, squeezes himself between the other car, and begins loosening the screws of his license plate. He takes the plate off and puts it under his shirt, flicks off the Taco Bell employees, then drives away. Chapter 6. Malakai is sticky. He looks around his precious car and sees the Sprite slowly drying. This is going to be another headache. For the next few days, he's going to have to Google how to get the aroma of Sprite out of his car. What made him even angrier was that he didn't even have his food. An hour and 12 minutes wasted. Angry. Cops possibly looking for him. And nothing to even munch on. Any sane person would have driven home by now. Malakai's not sane, though. He becomes insane when he's angry. He parked at the Walmart right by the Taco Bell. There were a few other cars at Walmart to help him be less noticeable. He was still close enough to Taco Bell to make eye contact with the entrance. Eventually, this worker would have to go home. Eventually, this worker would have to come outside the entrance. And eventually, this worker would have to make eye contact with Malakai and his bat. Malakai had played baseball growing up. Something about hitting a ball intrigued him, especially with a bat. Despite getting initially curious about baseball, he could never fall in love with it like he fell in love with other sports. However, he kept the bat. He'd often show off the bat to girls who he'd go on a date with. If he ever wanted to go back into baseball, the bat could be referenced once again. Tonight, the bat was going to serve a different purpose. Tonight, the bat was going to be used to break another man's skull. Chapter 7. Axel weaved through the roads as Gordon gave instructions. Despite Axel being so well-read and smart, he didn't know directions even if his life depended on it. Axel was ashamed by his poor knowledge of the streets, while Gordon didn't give a damn. Gordon would say, "That's what the GPS is for." That's what made all these brothers different. Gordon and Malakai were more similar than different, although they did possess differences. However, Axel seemed like he was from a different family. A 6'4" giant with broad shoulders, chiseled legs, and a strong jaw. To outsiders, Axel was known as a fighter. To people who knew Axel, he was an enigma. Axel was an esteemed fighter who was a savant in boxing, martial arts, wrestling, and much more. He had the awards and multiple championships to show for it. The world knew he could fight and hurt others. But to those people who really knew Axel, he was more than a fighter. He was more so a philosopher. A philosopher is known as the lover of wisdom. Well, that's what Axel was, constantly reading books, writing, and participating in debates on theology, mythology, purpose, etc. He'd often encourage Malakai and Gordon to read more too. "Readers are leaders," Axel would say as he began his 2-hour-a-day reading routine. Gordon would look at his brother with disgust and pride. He looked at Axel with disgust because he thought, "If I was so big, I'd beat up anyone who talked back to me." Gordon, just like Malakai, was a hothead. He believed disrespect should be met with violence, not words. That's why he was stunned by Axel's "use words, not fists" approach to conflicts. Malakai used to work in the Taco Bell at the food court, while Gordon and Axel worked in the subway nearby. The manager of the subway would often separate their shifts because he thought placing the two brothers on the same shift would make them slack off. Axel worked daytime. Gordon worked nighttime. One time, a geeky-looking customer was giving Axel a tough time because one of the subs was not a $5 footlong. The customer argued that the commercial said all the subs were $5 footlongs. Axel calmly said, "That doesn't apply to the subways at the mall, sir." Begrudgingly, the customer pulled out $2 more. Axel calmly gave the man his change back. Then the man threw the change at Axel's face. Gordon walked in as he saw the man throw the coins at his brother's face and became enraged. Axel politely said, "Sorry for the inconvenience, sir. Have a great rest of the day." Suddenly, Gordon runs from the back and hops over the counter to grab the customer by the neck. "You throw coins at my brother? How dare you disrespect him like that?" Axel was able to extend his large arm across the counter to grab Gordon's shoulder and say, "Gordon, it's not worth it. Let it go." The customer looked back at Axel in terror, making the facial gesture, "Protect me!" Gordon was not a large man by any means, 5'10" to be exact. But when he would get enraged like this, it made others fear for their life. Gordon looked back at the man, still seething with anger towards the disrespect he just showed his brother. He loosened his grip over the man's neck, but he didn't let the man go freely without any repercussions. Gordon looked the man dead in the eyes and spit right in his face. "Don't ever come back here again, bitch." The customer left in terror as the others in the food court witnessed what happened. The customer did return, though. The next day he came and told the manager what went down. The manager went on to swiftly fire Gordon. In Gordon's book, that was still a win. He felt disgust that Axel didn't use his strength to whoop the guy's ass. At the same time, he felt pride as he looked at his brother. Axel had something Gordon and Malakai didn't have: a cool head. Despite Gordon's anger, he was gifted in a game that required a calm to it: chess. He was a brilliant chess player who made a mockery out of other chess players. It could be argued that Gordon was better at chess than Axel was in combat sports, although the comparison was close. The game of chess was desperately looking for a star. Most of the players were nerdy, quiet, and didn't have any swag. Gordon, on the other hand, would talk a lot of shit. His constant trash-talking would make the other players nervous. They'd never seen a player who would be so vocal during a game. After a game was over, local reporters would interview Gordon. Gordon would routinely give entertaining interviews, which put the other reporters in awe. Soon, the other reporters began calling him the Conor McGregor of chess. Conor McGregor, in year 2016, was on top of the world for his brash, over-the-top personality. Likewise, Gordon's antics and larger-than-life personality made it easy to bring new eyes to the sport. Soon, magazines were creating content on Gordon. ESPN did multiple pieces on him. He roasted Stephen A. Smith's hairline and said that Shannon Sharpe looked like a burnt pickle. Gordon's critics thought his comments on Shannon Sharpe's skin color were racially motivated. Rather than apologizing, Gordon doubled down on his comments and began making fun of the reporters. Where cancel culture was on the rise, Gordon didn't give a damn about who loved him or hated him. Chess came easy to him. Trash talking came easy to him. So, he would do whatever he needed to do. Chapter 8. Most of the workers were exiting the Taco Bell at this time. However, Malakai still didn't see the cashier who was talking crap. After being in the car for 45 minutes after the incident, his anger was at an all-time high. He began thinking of a whole bunch of scenarios on how everything would play out. Malakai thought, what if Cooper exits with someone else present? Does he hit the other person too, or follow Cooper back to his house and then hurt him? Who knows? He just knew that someone was going to get an ass-whooping tonight. As 10 more minutes passed by, he saw all the lights turn off in the Taco Bell. That's when he saw a body come out of the restaurant and turn around to lock the door. His face was glued to his phone, reading something. It was evident that this guy had a long day. The body language showed the signs of someone who was overworked and underpaid. Before Malakai could feel any form of compassion for the guy, he turned his car on and began driving towards him. As the guy locks the door, Malakai pulls up behind him. The guy looks up from his phone and is startled to see Malakai lunging towards him. Malakai says, "Remember me, motherfucker?" Then hits him on the right arm with a bat. The cashier looks back in terror and begins to run. Since it was so late at night, there is no one else in sight. Some cars floating by on the road every now and then, and that was about it. Cooper doesn't say anything and begins running towards his car. Malakai chases him with the bat. He wanted to savor this ass beating he was about to give this guy, so Malakai purposefully doesn't run as fast as he could. Cooper opens the door and gets in his car. He struggles to find his keys to put in the keyhole. That's when Malakai turns his bat into a spike and begins hitting Cooper with the top of the bat. Hits the chest, hits the thigh, hits the shoulder. One strike after another. While he's getting hit, Cooper is finagling with the car compartment in the middle, reaching for something. After a dozen-plus blows, Cooper finds what he's looking for. It's pepper spray. He looks at Malakai with rage, aims at Malakai's eyes, and forcefully presses onto the pepper spray. Taken aback, Malakai feels a stinging sensation in both eyes and feels a strong aroma in his mouth that makes him gag. The strength of the pepper spray is strong enough to get Malakai off balance. As Malakai struggles to get control of his vision and balance, he drops the bat. Cooper gets out of the car and picks up the bat. Then he begins striking Malakai with full force and screams, "Trying to attack me, motherfucker? Didn't think I'd fight back, huh? Fight me!" Malakai feels the strong blows of the bat hitting his ribs, his legs, while simultaneously feeling his eyes burning. Cooper continues, "Say sorry to me, otherwise you're gonna die. I'll have you in the hospital for the rest of your life. Say sorry to me." Malakai was in dire pain, but he knew two things. 1, he would not apologize. 2, he'd rather die before apologizing to this man. Malakai felt one vicious blow after another. Soon, Cooper began hitting him with the bat, while at the same time making a phone call. "I need you guys to come to Taco Bell. Come quick. Bring guns." Guns? Malakai thought. Was he about to get killed? What was going to happen? This was his chance to get a few licks in. With Cooper making the call, his attention was fragmented from hitting Malakai. Suddenly, Malakai bites him on the leg and drops Cooper. Quickly, Malakai picks up his phone and sends a text message to his brother. "Help. 3211 Lincoln Road." Cooper gets up and lunges at him. He grabs Malakai's phone and throws it into the abyss. The two begin grappling and punching each other. Due to the severe bat hits, Malakai doesn't have much strength to fight back. He does what any sane person would do. He bites Cooper on his right trap. Cooper shrieks in pain. That's when Malakai pushes Cooper and runs to his car to drive away. He gets in the car and is about to put the car keys in to drive off. "Keys. Keys? Where the hell are my keys?" He looks around to see that there's a shiny object under Cooper's car, but Cooper doesn't see it. He begins lunging at Malakai's car with a bat, breaking the side mirrors, windshield, and mercilessly battering the car. Malakai had been having a long day, no doubt about that. However, Cooper's day wasn't going peachy by any means. 2 of his employees quit last minute. He had to work double shifts and get yelled at non-stop by customers. To only get jumped by a thug at the end of the shift? Cooper's rage was getting the best of him. He could have easily left when he saw Malakai in his car, but that would be letting this guy off the hook. "No, this guy will suffer. I can always argue self-defense," Cooper thought. He waited for his buddies to arrive with guns. He knew he wasn't going to kill Malakai, but it wouldn't hurt to give him a good scare. Cooper was a new dad, and he didn't want to risk going back to prison. Before Taco Bell, Cooper was part of a gang. Cooper Chavez was the son of the renowned kingpin, Andre Chavez. Although he had been less involved in the gang life as of late, he still had bursts of anger that would come flaming at any moment. Malakai sat helpless in his car. His ribs were broken, could barely feel his left leg. Eyes were stinging and his head was throbbing. "What do I do now?" he thought. Chapter 9. 2 more cars pulled up. Each car had 2 people in it. They slowly pulled up to the Taco Bell parking lot and got out. "What's good, brother? What can we help you with?" 4 gangbangers looked at Cooper in his worn-out Taco Bell uniform. "This guy just tried to kill me. I need a gun, a knife, something." "Cooper, this can hold you back. Let one of us do it. You just got out of prison and got a kid at home, too. There's no reason to go back to prison." Cooper knew this was true, but his pride couldn't let someone else attack Malakai. "No, give me a knife. I won't kill him, but I don't want him to see again." "Wait, the guy is in the car? Why didn't he drive off?" Cooper thought about that. He didn't consider why Malakai hadn't driven off after he got in the car. "Cooper, you think his keys are out here somewhere? I don't see the keys in his ignition." "Fuck," Malakai thought. "Please don't let them see the keys." Cooper had a glow to his face now. "Brothers, look around. There has to be keys out here somewhere. Whoever finds it, I'm gonna give you $1,000. Find the keys." Malakai's heart was beating through the roof. He should have just gone home after the Taco Bell incident. Once again, his rage got him in a position that he didn't see himself in. Tonight, it seemed like Malakai's rage would be getting him killed. The gang members looked around the area. They searched everywhere around the vicinity. By the Taco Bell main entrance, drive-thru, side entrance, everywhere but underneath Cooper's car. Malakai looked as he saw them searching away. Cooper looked through the window, making aggressive eye contact with his victim. Cooper's rage turned into a smirk as he began to acknowledge that he had the leverage in the situation. Soon, the keys would be found. And soon, he would take his time gently piercing Malakai's skin with his blade. Malakai looked back with aggression, not breaking eye contact while his peripherals kept awareness of underneath the car. Had Gordon and Axel gotten the message? Possibly, but Gordon would normally fall asleep on the couch around this time. Maybe he was sleeping, and he wouldn't see the message for another couple of hours. Axel was the religious one. Gordon was an atheist. Malakai was a blend of the two. He wanted to be an atheist like his twin. He didn't see the logical proof of God when breaking it down. Then again, he did see the logical proof for atheism. What if there was a grand being that was greater than logic alone? What if this grand being had rule sets beyond space, time, and causation? Axel would always say, God makes more sense when you're terrified. When your back is against the wall, the only person to cry to is God. Malakai noticed the practical effects that God had on Axel's life. Whenever Axel was beginning a match, he'd pray. Whenever he'd win a match, he'd pray. Whenever he'd lose a match, which was rare, he'd pray. The narrative of Axel's life was more than for the ego alone. He was secondary to God in his life. This allowed Axel to always have energy to serve. Then why was Gordon, the atheist, so full of knowledge and energy too? He was a superstar in his field, and he didn't believe in God. Whenever he won a chess game, he'd praise himself. When he lost, he'd blame himself. For Gordon, accountability was his God. Who was to say Gordon was wrong? Malakai was conflicted between the ideas of his two brothers. Tonight, he was terrified. His heart was beating through the roof. He saw one of Cooper's members getting closer to the car, closer to seeing the keys by the left back tire. With his heartbeat rising, Malakai was understanding what Axel was saying about being terrified. Malakai began to do something he rarely did. He began praying. Chapter 10.
Yo, Cooper, you drop your keys? Nah, man, I have 'em. Why? Well, it looks like I found them.
The member goes under the car, extends his arm, and grabs the keys. He clicks unlock, and Malakai can hear the doors unlock. Quickly, Malakai presses the lock again. Cooper smiles, knowing that was enough. He said he would pay the man $1,000 soon. Now he got the keys. He clicked unlock. Malakai clicked lock. He clicked unlock. Malakai clicked lock.
Everyone, go around the car,
Cooper said. The members got around the car. Cooper clicks unlock. Soon as Malakai was clicking lock, someone from the right passenger seat and back left passenger seat opened the door at the same time. The guy from the back put his arm around Malakai's neck. The guy from the right unlocked the entire car and began punching Malakai in the face. Cooper opened the door with his grin larger than ever. The other members pulled Malakai out of the car as Cooper toyed with the blade in his palms, visualizing what was going to take place. The other members put Malakai on his knees. His face was swollen and barely recognizable at this point. Cooper stares back at him.
Sup, bro? You got no words now?
Malakai looks back at him with a disgusted face. One of the members pulls Malakai's comb over and tilts his head upwards.
He's talking to you, bitch,
Cooper said.
Apologize to me, and I'll let you see out of one eye.
Malakai defiantly spits on Cooper. The spit had so much force that it was able to make Cooper's face despite Malakai being on his knees. The other gang members begin punching Malakai on the back of his head. Infuriated, Cooper says,
All right. No eyes, then.
Chapter 11. Axel and Gordon were pulling into Taco Bell. They were both talking about what could be the issue for the dramatic text. If it was a change of tires, they were going to roast Malakai on the ride back. Axel's feelings were springing up. He didn't have a good feeling for some reason. As he was pulling into Taco Bell, Gordon's body language became visibly different. He began looking astutely through his window, trying to make out what he was seeing. After locking his eyes in the vicinity, the image started getting clarified. He saw Malakai on his knees, bruised up and surrounded by what looked like 4 to 5 people. "Axel, look!" Gordon yells. Immediately, Axel sees what Gordon is seeing. Malakai was in trouble. He slams the accelerator and makes a loud screeching noise, getting the attention of all the others in the parking lot. "Did you invite others?" Cooper asked the member who found the keys.
Nah, I didn't. I don't recognize that car.
Axel drives right by the group. Him and Gordon get out the car in a rush. The other group members move out of the way, not knowing if they were seeing undercover cops or something. Gordon gets in front of Malakai to cover him up. Axel's eyes showed he wanted blood.
"Who the fuck are you guys?"
Cooper asked in rage.
"Get out of here, right now,"
Axel yelled in a commanding tone to the attackers, a tone that is not normal for the gentle giant. After looking closer, Cooper began to guess who Axel was.
"Oh, wait. You guys are his brothers, aren't you? I don't give a damn. Ask your brother what he did. He's not an angel. Screw your brother. I need at least one eye."
Cooper walked closer to the brothers with a large knife in his hand. Malakai, trying to regain his strength, was attempting to get up. Gordon looks from the corner of his eye to see if Malakai was good. Malakai gives a head nod to his brother, indicating he's okay. Gordon mouths, "You sure?" Malakai nods his head. He once again mouths, "You sure?" Malakai once again nods his head. Gordon whistles. Malakai whistles. Axel whistles. Then the three sprung up and began punching everyone in sight like their lives depended on it. Chapter 12.
"Malakai, where are your brothers?"
"I don't know."
"What do you mean, you don't know?"
Malakai shrugged his shoulders. His father hated when someone would shrug their shoulders at him. He got up and walked over to Malakai and grabbed his shoulders.
"Hey, look at me."
Malakai began looking at him.
"Two things, son. One, when someone asks you a question, don't shrug your shoulders. That's disrespect. Two, no more about your brothers. You guys are all you have, okay?"
Malakai nodded his head.
"Speak, son."
"Yes." Both father and son heard the door unlock and open with a conversation happening between Axel and Gordon.
"Axel? Gordon? Come here,"
Dad said. The two brothers walked in. They gave dabs to Malakai, and the father instructed them to sit down.
"Listen, sons. I want you to know something."
The brothers nodded their head, implying they were listening.
"One of these days, you guys are going to be in America. The stars are set for you guys to be there. They call it the land of opportunities. You guys are going to have more opportunities than you can imagine."
The brothers listened along. They liked what they were hearing.
"When there are too many opportunities, what happens is that people become corrupt. You know Rosie's two sons? They live in the same state, but haven't visited each other in 3 years. Apparently there was a business feud and the two brothers stopped talking to each other."
"Really?" Gordon asked.
"Yes, really. One day, you guys are going to be in America. You think you three are going to stop talking to each other?"
They all aggressively shook their heads with a, "What are you smoking, old man?" face, implying how ridiculous the father's question was.
"Do you think any brothers know the day they'll forever stop speaking with each other?"
What a poetically charged question. The types of poetically charged questions that Axel loved to be challenged to answer. Well, Dad, you framed the question as though unconditional love doesn't exist. If we factor in unconditional love, that means your question becomes nonsensical. Although Dad didn't know how to debate like Axel, he knew what the phrase meant.
"You got unconditional love for your brothers, Axel?"
"Of course, Dad."
"What if your brothers killed a man?"
"I would still love them to the moon and back," Axel responded.
"What if the person they killed was your son?"
Axel became visibly uncomfortable by the question. But in a sudden burst, he said, "If my brothers killed my son, there must have been a reason why." Dad wasn't expecting that response. Hearing that response strangely made him light up.
Listen, boys. When you guys are in America, never let the bond be broken. They don't like people like us over there, especially when they see us doing unique things. Whenever your brothers are in trouble, get up and fight.
Malakai and Gordon, although not trained fighters, loved the talk of violence. Was Dad giving them permission to fight?
I need you to let your fists fly when your brothers are in trouble. Don't think. Thinking too much in times of trouble creates cowards. Let your fists fly like your life is on the line. Protect those who need your protection. Otherwise, a life can be taken too soon.
Dad's voice began to shudder when he heard his own words. Malakai's dad's name is Lascelles. Lascelles used to have an older brother. Him and his older brother would play in the village. Back in his era, kids would play with slingshots. Fire off the slingshots in the forest, hit animals, and call that a fun day. There were no such things as a Game Boy back then. The village was like the ghetto on crack. One day, after hanging with his brother and the other friends, the night was winding down. Lascelles and his brother began walking back to the village. That's when they could hear footsteps following them. Lascelles looked at his brother, scared. His brother looked back at him and said, "Hey, some people are following us. Let's run." They began running. The footsteps behind them started to run as well. A group of men began shouting,
"Slow down, we just want to talk to you. Nothing'll happen to you."
The brothers were running as fast as they could, but Lascelles was running out of breath. His brother saw that. "Lascelles! Lascelles!" his brother yelled as they were running. "Both of us can't make it, Lascelles. I'm going to fight them. I need you to run and tell Mom and Dad to find me." "No, you can't," Lascelles yelled back. "Lascelles, I'm stopping. Keep running. Keep running. Run!" Lascelles continued to run. His brother turned around and began punching the goons like his life depended on it. Lascelles paused to turn around and fight with his brother. "Run, Lascelles, run! Run! Run!" his brother screamed. His brother continued to punch away. The brother was kidnapped and taken for ransom. Lascelles' family was too poor to afford the ransom. If the village got together and everyone dropped some money, then they would have been close to affording the ransom. But the other villagers had their own bills to pay. 2 weeks later, Lascelles' brother's body was delivered in a bag, chopped to pieces. The memory still haunts Lascelles to this day. A coward was what he saw in the mirror. His brother fought till the very end to protect him, while Lascelles ran away and couldn't protect his brother back. They talk about how PTSD can happen well after the act occurred. After the murder, Lascelles was numb, quiet, and his family in shambles. However, he didn't quite process what happened. Today he was processing what happened. Axel was the same age today that Lascelles' brother was when he was kidnapped and killed.
My brother was so handsome. You guys should have seen your uncle. He was way more handsome than me. He was more courageous than me. He was a better person than I could ever be, sons.
Whenever Lascelles could talk up his dead brother, he would go the extra mile. One reason was because he knew his brother was better than him. Another reason was because he couldn't help but pay homage to him. Lascelles looked at his 3 sons and said,
"When your brother is in trouble, you never run. You fight like your life depends on it, because you never know when it does."
Chapter 13. The 3 brothers all sprung into action after the 3 whistles and began punching away. The blitz of an attack completely threw the other 5 people off guard. Axel was like a lion unleashed. Simply making eye contact with an angry Axel was enough to leave an army of men paralyzed. And paralyzed they were. One punch from Axel was enough to knock someone out and possibly kill them. Axel was aware of this when he was sane. But now, if others had to die, they had to die. It was either a bunch of strangers who died or his brothers. That's the binary form of thinking that his father installed in him. Since he was the oldest, his father expected him to punch without thinking. Axel knocked out 2 of the gangbangers with ease. The compassionate Axel grabbed them as their lifeless bodies plummeted to the floor to make sure they didn't land on their heads. This opened a lane for the other 2 brothers to make it a fair fight. Gordon, filled with energy, began punching away. Full haymakers without a care for who was in sight. He had a strong rage towards the Taco Bell worker, whatever his name was. He was the guy that was taunting Malakai as the 2 were pulling in. Gordon fought like a man possessed. Malakai, at that moment, had forgotten that his ribs may have been broken. He forgot that he could barely see out of his eyes, and he forgot that they were outnumbered. All he could see was a gangbanger running to Axel's back with a knife. "Axel! Axel! Turn around!" Malakai lunges toward the man with the weapon as the fighter now points the knife towards him. Malakai felt a sudden gash on his head, blood pouring. Axel turns around and knocks the guy out. After another 2 minutes of fighting, the 2 remaining fighters look at Axel and indicate they give up. Okay, you win." Malakai and Gordon wanted to fight more, since they were winning, but the compassionate Axel allowed them to leave. Cooper was on the ground, with a huge knot on his head. Despite blood pouring into Malakai's eyes, and the peace treaty being reached, he quickly grabbed the bat and ran towards Cooper to return one favor. Before the 2 guys could carry Cooper away, Malakai returned the coveted favor. He proceeded to break Cooper's ribs. Chapter 14. "Yo, you okay?" Gordon asked. "Yeah, I'm good." Malakai held Gordon's shirt over his face to keep the blood from soaking up the entire car. "Malakai, what the hell happened? You realize that these guys are probably going to press charges, right? Do you know these fast food restaurants record everything? How could you be so stupid?" Axel yelled. "Chill, Axel. He's bleeding. Plus, I doubt he got in a fight for no reason." "I'm sure there was a reason, right, Malakai?" Gordon asked. Malakai nodded his head. "What was the reason, Malakai? We need to know. Eventually the cops are going to be looking for us. Don't hold anything back. What was the reason?" Axel asked. Malakai had a panicked look on his face, as if at any moment they were going to be pulled over by a cop. "What happened, Malakai?" Gordon asked. Malakai was silent. The other 2 waited. "The Taco Bell worker talked to me disrespectfully." Axel was waiting to hear what else was going to come out of Malakai's mouth. When he realized that was the reason, he became furious. "Are you kidding me? You let this situation get that bad because they talked to you disrespectfully? Are you that egotistical?" Gordon, overprotective of his twin, began to defend him. "Wait, Axel, calm down. He talked to you disrespectfully. How, Malakai?" "The idiots from Taco Bell had me waiting in line for over an hour. When I asked them to change the cinnamon twist for nachos, they told me they couldn't do it. Over an hour. They talked to me disrespectfully as well." Even Gordon at this point knew that Malakai made a big mistake. Gordon's temper was bad, but Malakai's was becoming worse. "Malakai, do you hear yourself talking right now? You literally let yourself come to death because of your ego. You need to grow up," Axel yelled. "It's not that simple. You had to be waiting in the drive-thru for that long to understand what I'm talking about. He even said yo mama when I told him that he was a worker who worked for me." "Malakai, you should probably fall back," Gordon whispered in his ear. Even he knew that this was not a good look for Malakai. "Listen," Axel said as he was pulling up in the drive-thru of their house. "The cops may be looking for us. Till then, we need to stay close." Chapter 15. The next few days went back to normal. All 3 brothers laid low. No cops pulled in their drive-thru or anything. It's not like Axel and Gordon could lay too low. They were top tier in their given fields. They often were performing, doing media, or in the public eye somehow. Malakai could use these next couple of days to lay low and figure out what happened. As of late, he'd been suffering from imposter syndrome. Before, Axel was the only brother who was seen as great. That's always been the norm. Even back in their village, that's all Malakai and Gordon would hear. "Your oldest brother is going to be somebody." Malakai had refuge in knowing that his twin brother was more so in the same playing field as him. They were both good in many fields, but not great. That changed when Gordon joined the chess team. After joining the chess team, he quickly proved to be a savant. What's surprising is that Malakai was the one who taught Gordon how to play chess in the first place. Gordon learned the game quickly, but found it boring. Normally, Gordon would lose to Malakai. After losing so many games, he announced, "Chess is whack," and went about his life. One day, Gordon's buddy Zimmer said that he was too dumb to play chess. Infuriated, Gordon joined the chess team to prove Zimmer wrong. What's crazy was that Gordon could virtually beat anyone besides Malakai, but Malakai couldn't beat many others besides Gordon. So seeing Gordon's astronomical rise in chess was puzzling for him. It showed a further gap between him and his brothers. Was his recent rage a way of acting out? Every Sunday, his parents from the village would call the three brothers. Every Sunday, Axel and Gordon would be filled with great news, while Malakai's conversations were filled with awkward silences and, Malakai wanted to be good at something. Scratch that, he wanted to be awesome at something. He wanted to hear, "You're the Axel of fighting. You're the Gordon of chess." Malakai felt more like an imposter because he and Gordon had the exact same face. They were twins, after all. Distant people couldn't tell the difference between them, but close friends could tell the difference after spotting their mannerisms. Where Gordon was awful at remembering people's names, Malakai excelled at that. That's one of the reasons they couldn't trick others too much growing up. It's because one kept calling common friends by a completely different name. The same face was definitely what sparked Malakai's imposter syndrome. "My brother is becoming great, while I'm becoming more mediocre by the day." When Malakai became angry, he felt powerful. There was a sense of power he felt, making others walk on eggshells around him. It's as though he was great in persuasion. But not really. Getting angry to make others do something was manipulation, not persuasion. Add that to the things that Malakai felt shorthanded about. "You remember all these people's names and can't even persuade them? Come on. What good are you?" he said to himself in silence. There was one field that Malakai was evolving in. However, it was seen as a garbage skill. That skill was impromptu speaking. If you gave Malakai any topic under the sun, he could create a compelling talk on it out of the ether. Giraffes? Malakai could create a talk on it. Purple giraffes? Malakai could create a talk on it. Purple giraffes who could talk and fly? Malakai could create a talk on it. Despite being great at impromptu speaking, the skill set was not recognized anywhere. The common folks would say, "Impromptu speaking? Huh, let me guess, you're too lazy to actually prepare your speech, huh?" This question would infuriate Malakai. As if thinking on the spot, using logic, adjusting body postures, controlling the breath was easy. Malakai found it difficult to compete in speech competitions because the show coordinators would often want a rough template of the speech to see if it was appropriate for the event. Sure, Malakai could create a planned speech and push his pride aside, but there was a magic that was missing when he'd do that. Malakai once learned from research what happens when a rapper freestyles versus reading the lyrics off the paper. When the rapper freestyles, that's when the sense of self area of the brain gets disengaged. The rapper enters a portal that allows them to enter a field of infinite possibilities. On the other hand, when a rapper reads off the lyrics, the same effects are not seen in the brain. Malakai noticed a similar experience with impromptu speaking. At times, when he was practicing impromptu speaking, he was getting ideas and thinking, "Whoa, where did that idea come from?" When he was doing impromptu speaking, that's when he was becoming a hub of great ideas, becoming a comedian, and had extra charm to him. What should he do? Should he double down on his skill set of impromptu speaking? Or should he adopt a skill that was already in demand? All he knew was that his brothers were showing him up. He knew that he wasn't supposed to ever compete with his brothers, however, the gnawing sensation of imposter syndrome was eating away at him. The house was empty. Malakai walked into the kitchen, opened the fridge, got a bag of ice, and put it on his swollen face. Chapter 16. How many times can a person fall and get back up? Malakai asked himself. Axel had a boxing gym where he would go and coach the upcoming athletes. Axel would take Malakai and Gordon with him to watch and possibly spar in a few rounds. Today, Gordon had a chess match, so he couldn't be there. Axel didn't bring up the Taco Bell fight again after that initial night. From his body language, it was easy to tell something was up. Axel wasn't the kind of guy who would attack regular people. That night, Malakai saw a primal side of Axel that he wasn't used to seeing. Despite the blind rage, Axel remembered. He wanted to make sure he didn't put himself in a position to fight regular people again. If it was his choice, Malakai wouldn't put himself in these positions. Getting caught in these predicaments was not part of Axel's nature. Still, the 3 whistles were all it took. The 3 brothers realized they needed a game plan to make their dad's software of protect your brothers at all costs a reality. When all 3 whistles were heard by all 3 brothers, they would throw punches and ask questions later. The 3 whistles didn't only mean to fight. It also meant other things. Those 3 whistles served as an acknowledgement that extended beyond words. Another scenario they whistled 3 times was when they wanted to leave a party without offending the host. Today was the day where Malakai got to see his brother flex his coaching skills. On TV, boxing looks like a few brutes just punching each other. But when you're in the gym watching these people fight, it becomes a different ballgame. That's when it becomes evident how much skill it requires to be a boxer. They don't call boxing the sweet science for no reason.
Look, when they try to hit you, use your shoulder for your protection. The shoulder clenched up like this will absorb more hits than your raw ribs, Axel said as he began turning his body to show the upcoming fighter what he was talking about. The guy that Axel was coaching was getting his ass beat by the competitor. Malakai was thinking, how many times can someone fall and keep getting back up? The warrior spirit always resonated with Malakai. He knew that it was something that he could always connect with. He wasn't ever a smart student or anything like that, but not giving up was his bread and butter. The guy Axel was coaching wasn't giving up. He kept getting knocked down and getting back up. Axel would fill this guy up with motivation and say, you just need one timely hit to change the fight. Just one timely hit. Use your head. Boxing is a science. Play chess while they play tic-tac-toe. After getting brutally knocked down 5 times, suddenly, Axel's fighter began getting more refined. He was more efficient with his moves, was dodging punches and landing some snappy punches himself. After 5 agonizing knockdowns, Axel's fighter landed a clean uppercut that knocked the other fighter out. The gym erupted in cheers. Malakai sat there silently as he saw the gym erupting in celebration after the knockout. Wow, he was not expecting that at all. Guess Axel was right. All it takes is one punch to turn things around. Chapter 17. I'm scared to ask, but do you want to go to Taco Bell?
Axel asked Malakai with a smirk on his face.
I'll pass. Chick-fil-A? It's Sunday.
Damn, why the hell do I always want to go to Chick-fil-A when it's Sunday?
Burger King?
Yeah, let's do Burger King, Malakai said. The 2 brothers placed their orders and began driving back. The boxing gym was roughly 55 minutes from where the brothers lived. These car rides often went 2 ways. 1, the music is turned up and each brother zones out. 2, the music is turned down and the brothers talk. Today was a mood for the second.
Can I ask you something, Axel? Sure. That night I saw you fight. I just wanted to say that you're really powerful. I mean, you're great at what you do. I know others think that fighting is something an animal does, but the way you're targeted with your moves really inspires me. Well, that night, Malakai, I'll be honest. I wasn't being calculative. I was being an animal. How come you don't take more pride in your fighting? I mean, this is one of the skill sets that other men dream of having. You have the sport of a warrior at the palm of your hands, Malakai said. Axel was silent, thinking of a response. It's not that I'm not proud of fighting, Malakai. This is what I do. But I just feel like it's not who I am, you know? No, I don't know. You're a big guy. Athletic, too. Not those bodybuilders who walk around like Patrick from SpongeBob. You know the history of fighting. Fighting seems like it was designed for you, or better, you were designed to be a fighter.
Axel shuffled around once again, thinking of what to say. Axel knew that Malakai was right. He was designed to be a fighter. He was ferocious, strong, agile, and had stamina. Still, Axel always felt like he was an intellectual. The idea that he was viewed as a barbarian bugged him a lot. Malakai breaks the silence with a question.
Are you embarrassed to be a fighter?
Axel was silent to think of how to respond. He realized it was no use. So, he simply said,
Yeah, I am. Can we exchange gifts? Well, I need to have a gift to be able to exchange. Seriously, I don't think you know what a gift you really have, Axel. You make this entire town proud. You're like the Deion Sanders of combat sports. You can fight, box, do jujitsu. It's so easy for you. How come you're embarrassed? It's because I'm not a dumb guy. Others always assume I'm this brute, but I'm smarter than I look.
That he was. Axel would read for a whopping 2 hours a day, which was a lot compared to the general public. He was well-spoken, and it could be argued that he was smarter than he was stronger. However, he was rarely recognized for that part of his life. Others would think, Axel? Smart? Yeah, right. I doubt he can even read. Malakai was once watching a documentary on Wilt Chamberlain, where Wilt was quoted saying, "No one roots for Goliath." Back in Wilt's day, he was a large athletic specimen who dwarfed the other basketball players. When he'd win, others would say, "Of course he should win. Look how large he is." When he'd lose, others would say, "How could he possibly lose? Look how large he is." People weren't sweet creatures like fairy tales often had others believe. In the real world, people could be jealous creatures. When humans see someone who is great and is drastically better than them at something, it often makes them think, well, what does this guy have that I don't? When they see that the great person is equally great in a completely different field, their minds simply cannot compute. That's what bugged Axel. Thus far, he had been boxed in as a fighter. His village back home knew him as a fighter. The town he lived in knew him as a fighter. ESPN and different YouTube channels that would talk sports considered him a fighter. Fight, fight, fight. Although he was equally, if not greater, in academics, Axel would always be known as a ferocious beast.
You're right, though, Malakai. I should be prouder. I talk to others about fighting a lot, but I don't talk to you and Gordon too much about fighting because y'all know me deeper. By the way, what interests you?
Malakai hated questions like that because it made him make eye contact with his deficiencies.
I like impromptu speaking. Like improv? It could be, but it doesn't have to be improv. I can talk about any topic out there, serious topics too. Yo, that's fire, Malakai. What do you want to do with it? That's the thing, man. I don't know. There aren't any speech competitions for me. There aren't any speaking leagues for me. No one even knows impromptu speaking is a thing. How do you know it's a thing? A homeless man taught me, Malakai said as he looked out the window.
Chapter 18. It was a cold day, and Malakai had just gotten out of school. He was taking a bus, something he rarely did. Not the school bus, by the way, the public one. At the time, Malakai was in high school. Once he was on the bus, he saw a rugged man sitting in the front. The man had long hair and wore a heavy jacket. It seemed like he was in the bus for a long time. Maybe he was. Maybe that's where he lived. It was highly likely that this man was a homeless guy. Malakai sat by him and pulled out his paper to draw. Although he wasn't a serious drawer, every now and then he'd love to doodle something. He sits down and the homeless man looks at him, makes a mental note of something, and then goes back to humming. Malakai hears the humming. The humming had a nice rhythm to it. He wondered if this guy was one of those talented homeless people. There were a lot of viral clips going around lately, with homeless people who had an angelic singing voice. At first glance, it would have been impossible to tell what a great voice this person had. But after they opened their mouth and sang, that's when the melody flew through. heavenly. Malakai wondered if that was the case with this homeless man. Should he break the ice and ask him if he was talented? Would he be pushing the boundaries if he asked how this man became homeless? As Malakai was deciding whether to break the ice with him or not, the homeless man asked, "You draw?" Startled, Malakai says, "Sort of, but nothing serious. You have any talents?" The homeless man responded with, "Give me any topic out there." "Squidward," Malakai said. Without hesitation, the homeless man said, "As you can tell, in this life there are those with the empowering personalities and draining personalities. Life looks so complicated, but there are only two options, up and down. I'd like to break down a symbolism of the two. SpongeBob and Squidward. SpongeBob, as you know, was ready, while Squidward was someone with a fixed mindset. A fixed mindset radiated on the face, which showed in his tone. In a world full of Squidwards, be SpongeBob. No matter how many push you to be fixed, always be ready, my friend. Always be ready." The guy could have continued for a long time if he needed. However, he could tell by Malakai's eye contact that the short talk had been enough. "Whoa, that's fire. How did you know that I was going to ask you about Squidward?" "I didn't." "Then how did you create a talk so quickly?" "I thought on my feet," responded the homeless man. "Huh? That's a thing? I thought people on TV only did that. Were you on TV before?" "No, this is a skill set I learned when I was younger. When my stepdad would ask me why I came home late, I had to learn to lie. If I gave him an answer that he didn't like, then he would hit me. I learned to think on the fly, with my heart beating fast. That's when you learn it the best." "What's the name of what you just did?" "It's called impromptu speaking." Malakai was intrigued. The whole idea of creating topics out of the ether seemed like magic to him. He often had these school projects which required a long time to create a speech. This man can design speeches in his head and just deliver it? How much time would that save? Nothing seemed rushed. It seemed like he had great pacing in his delivery, like he was sitting on that work for a long time. "Doesn't your head hurt when you do this impromptu speaking, since you're thinking?" "That's why you have to practice," said the homeless man with a smile on his face. Malakai loved that word. Practice. It's because things didn't come easy to him. He was not a natural at anything. He believed in practice. His father was a huge promoter of practice. The homeless man continued, "Every day give yourself one topic and create a talk on it. Here's rule number 1. Do not start over. Do not start over. Do not start over." Malakai saw this man glitching at the "do not start over" sentence. He said it 15 times without even changing facial expressions. This had the curious Malakai ask, "Why wouldn't I start over? Especially when I make a mistake. That would be the best time to start over, no?" "No. Do not start over. When you begin a talk, finish the talk. When your back is against the wall, that's when you think the best. That's where creativity is built. Impromptu speaking allows you to surprise yourself and connect with a deeper side to you. Make sense?" Sort of. It's not supposed to make sense. Most people think things make sense before ever putting any work in the game. Give me a talk on purple ducks." "Huh?" Malakai asked. "You hesitated. Rule number 1 is that you do not start over. Rule number 2 is to never hesitate. This is tough in the beginning stages because you'll hesitate a lot. Humans love predictability. When you take away their predictability, they panic. This is why impromptu speaking is not for everyone. It's only for the bold." Just like Malakai loved the word practice, he equally loved the word bold. If you were to describe Malakai with any word, he'd prefer a spin-off of bold, brave, or a warrior. If this homeless man was saying that impromptu speaking was a trait of the bold, then Malakai would give it a chance. Wait a minute. Why is he giving this homeless man so much credit? I mean, he's homeless. If he knew things so well, he'd have a family, shelter, and money. Why should Malakai listen to him for? Malakai's facial expression of doubt was noticed by the homeless man. "Let me guess.
You're wondering why I'm homeless, huh?
Malakai nodded his head.
I want you to know something. Good habits begin when you leave the door open. Just leave the door open, keep entering the door, and soon the good habits take up a life of its own. The habit works through you. I hope you'll hone this impromptu speaking skill set by leaving the door open. Just like the good habits begin when you leave the door open, so do the bad habits.
And what was your bad habit?
I drank a lot of alcohol.
Why?
Why does anyone drink?
The homeless man asked back. Malakai thought and responded back with, I drink every now and then to party. My friends sneak some liquor from their parents' cabinet. It's thrilling, you know, but I never got why people would drink so much. It gives me a headache.
Like I said. Wait, what's your name?
Malakai. Yours?
Like I said, Malakai. Habits start off light. First you need 1 shot to get drunk. Then you need 2 shots to get drunk. Then you need 3 shots to get drunk. First you need 1 hit to get high, then you need 2 hits to get high. Then you need 3 hits to get high. That's how my spiral began.
Malakai still didn't get this man's name, but he was intrigued with what exactly happened to this guy. Other than looking like a bum, this guy seemed well-spoken, sharp, and a voice filled with conviction. What happened to you, sir? Malakai asked in a respectful tone.
The bad habits took up a life of its own. I began drinking too much, got a DUI, and got fired from my job. The time I should have spent looking for a new job, I drank instead. My wife filed for divorce. I drank more and smoked more. Eventually I was on my own. Found it difficult to pay the mortgage and my house was seized. Now I'm here.
What do you plan to do?
I plan to open the door for the good habits. That's why I'm teaching you. When you do good, that's when the universe tries to help you out. It's all about intent. I want to help you because something in my gut tells me you'll take this impromptu speaking skills thing to the top. The universe favors those who have the right intent. Back then, I had the bad intent. I was always doing things for me, so life kicked my ass to correct me.
Intent? Axel would often preach to Gordon and Malakai about the importance of doing things with the right intent. But Malakai thought that was just Axel being his usual philosophical self. Was there more to it? The homeless man looked back at Malakai.
You may be judging me.
No, sir. I'm not.
It's all good. Humans naturally judge others. They look down on someone and say, that can never happen to me. I know because I used to look down on the homeless. Life taught me to avoid saying something could never happen to me, because life has a funny way of proving us wrong. Stay humble, kid.
Malakai's stop came, and he waved the homeless man goodbye and headed home. Chapter 19. Hey, baby boy, how's everything going? Asked Mom. It's going well, Malakai said. Every Sunday, Malakai's mom would call from the village to catch up. She would talk to Axel first, then Gordon, then Malakai. He didn't like talking on the phone with his parents too much. The main reason was because he always talked to them the last from the brothers, which meant they were blown away with Axel's accomplishments. Then they were blown away by Gordon's accomplishments, to only be disappointed when Malakai began speaking. Even if Malakai found the cure for cancer, he'd still find it difficult to compete with Axel and Gordon. He loved his brothers. However, his brothers were playing a large part in his imposter syndrome. Intellectually, he knew he should not be blaming his brothers. That's victim mentality. However, his emotions would still generate thoughts like, if they weren't your brothers, you'd actually have a good relationship with your parents. Malakai, I think you should talk to your father. He was really hurt by your last conversation, his mom said. No, I'm not talking to that man. Screw him. Malakai, watch it. You need to work on that temper of yours. I knew he was harsh, but still, he's your father. He's the reason you were able to go to the States. please think about giving him a call. I can actually give him the phone right now. He's working outside. Is that okay?"
No, it's not okay.
Malakai abruptly hung up. The last conversation with his father did not go well. The reason the conversation got under Malakai's skin was because he knew his father was right. You ever had that moment when you're feeling doubt about yourself? When someone in the outside world would articulate the doubt for you, making it real? Well, in their last conversation, Malakai's father called him a failure.
Look at your brothers, Malakai. They're pursuing purpose. What is your purpose? You seem like an aimless bag floating in the wind. Every day, you're doing something new, can't commit to anything. This is the mindset of a failure, Malakai. I'm not aimless, I'm experimenting. How am I supposed to know what I'm supposed to do from the beginning? I need to experiment and try new things, Malakai responded back. No. What you need to do is get mentors and commit. Listen, Dad, with all due respect, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. You only have a little bit of information and are basing all your opinions off that. I know what the real issue is. It's because you see all of Axel and Gordon's accomplishments on TV and news articles. That doesn't mean I'm not doing anything. Then what are you doing? Be specific. I'm learning to draw, Dad. That's a waste of time. What are you, Disney? He learned to draw to build a business. What are you learning to draw for? I'm also learning this thing called impromptu speaking. Impromptu what? Impromptu speaking, Dad. This is when you build nuanced speeches packed with information and entertainment without any preparation. It's called speaking off the cuff. Oh, I see. You're too lazy to prepare your speech like others. See, Malakai? This is what I mean. You lack the work ethic of your brothers. You're literally listening just to shoot my ideas down. You don't even know what impromptu speaking is. You should ask me some questions rather than talking down on it. I don't need to ask about it. Look, if you want to work your way up, you need to commit. Look at Gordon, refining his craft in chess. Look at Axel, refining his craft. What are you refining? Next week, I want to see what you're committing to.
Malakai was boiling with rage. This conversation was disrespectful. He wasn't going to tolerate the disrespect.
Hey, you know what? Fuck you. What have you accomplished? Let me hear it. What have you committed to?
Malakai was flipping the script. He was not going for insults, but for answers. Caught off guard, Malakai's dad responds with,
Malakai, watch your tone, son. You watch your tone. You haven't done shit with your life. That's why you're in a village barely making ends meet. I know a coward isn't talking down on me. Because of you, your brother died. It's because you ran away like a coward. I hope that memory haunts you forever. Don't you ever talk disrespectful to me again, you fucking coward.
Then Malakai hung up. That was the last conversation he had with his father. Knowing Lascelles, he wasn't going to apologize. Knowing Malakai, he wasn't going to apologize. Malakai's mom tried to play peacemaker, but she knew it was useless trying to talk any sense into these two hardheads. Gordon and Axel would often try to hand over the phone to Malakai, but that still didn't work. Malakai had to assess why disrespect bothered him so much. He often acted out in anger with such ferocity that it was as though he was watching himself from afar while another force worked through him. He was going to prove his dad wrong. He wanted to show that this impromptu speaking skill set was not a waste of time. Eventually, his dad would see him on TV, like he saw Gordon and Axel. Chapter 20.
Yo, Malakai, you free?
Gordon was speaking through the room.
Yeah, I am. What are you working on?
Gordon asked. Malakai looked embarrassed as he put his magician's hat away.
Why the fuck you got a magician's hat, David Blaine-looking ass?
Gordon busted out laughing. Malakai was too embarrassed.
Don't worry about it. What's good, Gordon? Nah, why you got a magician's hat?
Malakai pulled the magician's hat out of the desk.
Okay, long story short, There was a homeless man a while back who told me about this thing called impromptu speaking. Since then, the skill has been in my mind. I got the magician's hat to stay committed. I get a bunch of random topics from the internet, print it out, chop it into pieces, and put it in this hat. Then I pull a random topic out of the hat and give a 2-minute talk on it.
Malakai was expecting Gordon to laugh some more and make fun of him. Instead, Gordon looked intrigued.
Why the magician's hat, though? I don't know, man. Something about this impromptu speaking thing makes me feel like I'm doing magic. I'm creating a talk out of thin air. This hat was just a symbol for me to stay committed, you know? Yeah, I know. Every now and then when I play chess, I picture myself wearing a crown. I should buy a crown. I guess it's one of those subconscious reprogramming things, yeah? Yeah.
Malakai was shocked that Gordon knew exactly what he was talking about. Then again, they were twins. Same mannerisms, same face, same rage. Gordon knew Malakai. Malakai knew Gordon. Although, as of late, Gordon and Malakai weren't too sure if they knew Axel.
Hey, Malakai, don't tell Axel what I'm going to tell you. Okay. You notice he's been drinking more? Yeah, I noticed that. But he never drank before. Nowadays he drinks every day. I was Googling to see how much is safe for people to drink every day. It says something like 2 shots is fine for an adult. I think he drinks 2, but you think it's something we should be worried about?
Malakai immediately thought about the homeless man.
Leave the door open for good habits and it'll grow. Leave the door open for bad habits and it'll grow. I mean, he's drinking the acceptable amount, right? So I think it should be good. I heard all humans have some kind of vice which keeps them sane. Axel has so much going on for him, I guess drinking is his vice?
Malakai was unsure. He was thinking out loud in a doubtful tone. Gordon thought about it. It made reasonable sense. Still, neither brother was sure. Gordon asked,
You think, I don't know, he's sad? What if he's sad and not stressed?
Malakai thought about it for a second. The car ride with Axel came to mind. Looking back at it, Axel seemed sad that day. When Malakai asked Axel why he wasn't proud of fighting, he seemed out of it. Was he proud of fighting, or was he sad about that? Was he sad, or was he having some sort of head damage? Guys who fought for a living were susceptible to developing brain damage. Malakai didn't want to bring up the car ride conversation to Gordon. It didn't seem like a big deal.
I think he's just unwinding, Gordon. What do you do to unwind? I feel like I do it for a living. Chess helps me unwind. You don't have any bad habits? Huh. I eat a lot of Reese's candy at night. Does that count? Yeah, I guess it does count because it's super sugary. So, what, 1 Reese's is for you like 1 shot is for Axel? Huh. That actually does make a lot of sense. It does, doesn't it?
Malakai was surprised by the sudden analogy that he pulled out of thin air.
That was a fire analogy, Malakai. Were you able to get that analogy so fast because you've been practicing impromptu speaking? I guess so. You like what I said? Yeah, it was fire. Fire? Yeah, fire means, fire. It means awesome.
Why did Gordon use that phrase, fire? Because when Malakai heard the homeless man creating talks out of thin air, the first thing he also said was,
Whoa, that's fire.
Was this Gordon and Malakai's twin sensations kicking in? Or was this a piece of knowledge he should store in his mind for the future?
Thanks, Gordon. For what? Thanks for supporting me, man. After the fallout with Dad, I've been doubting myself a bit. Also, seeing you and Axel making a name for yourself makes me feel proud, but it also makes me feel like I'm falling behind, you know? Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Eventually, Malakai, you're going to find something that clicks for you. I'm sure of it. And you're probably going to have no clue when it comes. If this impromptu speaking thing interests you a lot, you should give it a real shot. How did you know that chess was going to be your thing? I didn't know. It just snuck up on me. When you introduced chess to me, I thought the game was stupid, no lie. But I realized my life was about to change. My body already knew. It was like, yo, this is your thing. That's what you felt? Yeah, that's what I felt. I was like, to my body, chess? Fuck out of here. I said that I'm going to be a fighter like my older brother, but my body was giving me the signs that chess was going to be in my future.
Malakai understood the description Gordon was giving. That's the same way Malakai felt when he was hearing about impromptu speaking. Gordon continued.
The difference between a hobby and a craft is that with a craft, you need to study it. I talk a lot of shit to my opponents because I did my homework. If this impromptu speaking thing is going to be your craft, you gotta study it.
And study it, Malakai did.